It's the Advent season. I bet your children know the reason Advent because of an Advent calendar where they get to get fun presents and gifts each and every day as we go to Christmas. How do you help your children celebrate Advent? My name is Elaine Pendergrass. I specialize in children's ministry and education, and I love to help equip parents in how to raise their children in faith. A great time to do this is during the Advent season when we anticipate the coming, which means Advent. Advent means coming, when we anticipate the coming of Jesus. So many activities around this time, so let's talk about Advent Day 2. If you're to open up your Advent calendar today, you might find some kind of fun prize, you might find a piece of candy, you might even find a Grinch kiss. But guess what? Today, on day 2 of Advent, I'd love for you to have an activity you can do with your children. So day 2 Advent is this. Put out the nativity scene. Hopefully you have at least one nativity scene in your home. It might just be a statue that shows things that are kind of in place stuck there that show probably baby Jesus, show probably Mary, probably Joseph, some shepherds, maybe some wise men or magi is a better way to say that, and an angel, and probably a star. So even though those things don't all come from the same birth narratives in the Bible, they are all part of the story. So there's Matthew and there's Luke. So there are 2 different birth narratives that you can read with your children. This might be a fun thing to do. Get out the birth narratives and read to your children. And then when it's time to get the nativity scene out, have your children help you set up the nativity scene. Have them put the pieces out and have them tell you the story of the birth of Jesus while they put the pieces out. Many nativity scenes at people's homes when I was growing up were off limits for children. They were glass, they were delicate, they were just for looking, not for touching. So what a fun way to get your children involved and your grandchildren involved by giving them a chance to play with the nativity scene. I have one nativity scene that I got from Bethlehem, the city where Jesus was born, and it's made of olive wood. And each year we put that nativity scene out, and when my children were little, I would have it out, but I would let them set it up. It might not stay the same way all the time. They might change it around, but I try not to do it even this year until my children get involved and set it up, even though they're 16 and 19 now. It's a wonderful way for children to reenact the story, what they know about the story. You can help them correct a few things as you go on, or you can just help them learn the story, because the gist of the story is this. God the Father sent Jesus, God the Son, to earth. He was born as a man, as a baby. He was born as a baby who grew up into a man and never did anything to disobey God's laws and God's rules. He was born to Mary, who was a virgin. She had never been with a man before. She had never done married people things, as a way to say that. And to Joseph, who was his earthly father. They had baby Jesus, and that's why we celebrate Christmas. Now, why does this matter? Well, baby Jesus was more than just any old baby. He was God, the Son, who came to earth. And when he grew up, that was God's plan that when he grew up with living a sinless life, a life that pleased God fully, where he didn't make bad choices, he gave his life on the cross to pay for our sins. And so the birth of Jesus matters because down the road, because he showed us how to live like God's kingdom. And then eventually he gave his life and he died on the cross and he rose from the dead. And that's when we celebrate Easter. We'll talk about that later. But for now, he was the most important baby that was ever born. Jesus was the best gift. So as you set up the nativity scene, think about the things that are in the scene. Baby Jesus is the central character. In some cultures, baby Jesus does not get put out until Christmas Eve, which is kind of fun. In other cultures, though, we just put him out because we want to remember all season long why we celebrate. So you might see some shepherds. The shepherds were guarding and guiding and taking care of their flocks by night when an angel and then a multitude of angels showed up to say, hey, something happened. This baby has been born. And you'll find him wrapped in swaddling clothes, kind of like a swaddle for a baby that many of our babies today have, and lying in a manger, which was a feeding trough. So as your children are putting this together, remind them, baby Jesus didn't have a crib. He didn't have a pack and play. He didn't have a car seat. They just used what they had around. Very much like when my mother was little, she said that she was put in, when they didn't have a crib, she was put into a drawer from a dresser. And that's where her little bed was. Well, baby Jesus was put into a manger, a feeding trough for animals, because that's what they had around. So that's the shepherds part in the story. They went to find this baby that the angels told them about. The magi are the guys who showed up who would have been kind of like watching the stars. They would have been very aware of what's happening in the stars and paid attention to what those things said about what was happening. And so the magi saw a certain star that told them that there was a king to be born. So that's their part in the story. They were going to find a king. So the magi are there. It does not tell us how many magi there were in the story. Oftentimes people assume it's 3. There's church legend about certain names of these 3 magi, but there's no mention of 3 in the story. That probably comes from having 3 gifts. So just be careful as you talk to your children. Don't say 3 wise men or 3 magi or 3 whatever. They're certainly not kings. Magi is the most accurate word, and there were not 3 necessarily. So just say the magi. They brought gifts to Jesus of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, very special gifts. There might have been some sheep in the story. I mean, they were in a kind of a stable area, which was probably underneath where the people actually lived, where they kept their animals. There might have been a donkey. We don't know. There might have been other animals. We don't know. But we can assume there were some animals. We're just not sure which ones are there, and they're not mentioned in the story. As I mentioned earlier, Joseph was Jesus's earthly father, so he would be in the nativity scene. So would Mary, Jesus's earthly mother, who actually birthed Jesus. So we've got shepherds, we've got magi, probably some animals, baby Jesus, the star character, Mary, and Joseph. Those are probably the characters that you'll see in your nativity scene. Although the Matthew passage in the beginning of Matthew and the Luke passage in the beginning of Luke are a bit different. One story is about magi, one story is about shepherds, but oftentimes in movies and even in the nativity scene, we conflate the two to make them one, which is totally fine. Not a big deal as we talked about this with our children. So there are different nativity scenes you can use. I have an olive wood one that I mentioned. That's one of the nativity scenes I have. One of my other favorite nativity scenes is the Little People nativity set. I don't get any royalties for that, but I just think that's a really cute one. There's even an angel that sits on top of the nativity, and then the star kind of shines and it sings, I think, Away in a Manger. So that's a really cute set. It's made for play. There are other sets you can find too. I've seen a Peanuts set. I've seen little duckies, like rubber duckies that are dressed like nativity characters, and all other kinds of things. It doesn't really matter what kind you have. The point is that your children are able to learn the story and tell the story and show the story of what happened. Another set that I like are a set of magnetic nativity scenes. I think I got this at a dollar store years ago. This angel is missing a pigtail. And the angel was a man in the story anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But the point is, you could put this on your refrigerator or give your child a cookie sheet like I did and have them tell the story and set up where everybody goes. So on this second day of Advent, I hope that you'll spend time with your children exploring the nativity scenes, playing with the nativity scenes, and talking about the story that is the birth of Jesus.